it's quite shocking to observe what mental illness can do to people. Or do I mean mental illness? Do I mean the lack of a moral education? And do I mean by a lack of moral education, a lack of an official religion? It seems to me that people need some kind of story to explain themselves. Obviously, they'll have their own story about who their parents are. And beyond their parents, they need an idea of who they are in the world. So they need to know where their parents stand in the world, what class their parents are and which groups they are attached to, and all the groups that you can attach yourselves to in life. So the main groups of people: are you male or female? Are you young or old, rich or poor? Republican or monarchist, Jew or Gentile, atheist or theist, gay or straight. Now, all these varieties of choice, and married or not. And it is only the religious groups that are, or that they are literally the most powerful groups, as well as the biggest groups, and they last longer than even empires. Because that is the whole purpose of religion, to transcend mortal men and even their civilizations that last thousands of years. So we can think of a few civilizations or religious groups that have been around for thousands of years. And obviously, religion is used to make people think and behave in a different way than otherwise they would behave. And really, that is the most important part of it, all things considered. So what part of our identity is the most important, and why? Obviously, in order to know what we have to do for the best, we have to know who we are. We have to know if we are male or female, rich or poor, high or low status, to do what is appropriate for us in order to remain in our group. Now, can we change our group? Of course we can, but uh, the transition is not usually easy, because you may not be able to easily leave your group, and having lost your group, you may not easily join the other group that you wish to become a member of. Now, we live in the age of identity politics, and if not to anyone else, our identity is important to ourselves. Because we need to know who we are and where we belong so that we can calibrate our behavior in order to best fit in. At the moment, people are talking about transgenderism, and a lot of people do get very hot under the collar about it. And they don't quite know. People don't quite know what they ought to do about it. Do we need to be polite about transgender people or call them out for being mentally ill and intolerant of people who wish to insist that women are individuals who are born with female sex organs and that men are born with male sex organs? And whether the government should be helping people who want to change their sex. We have to wonder why they are doing it. A few theories have been proposed, but it doesn't matter whether they're doing it for if they're doing it, if they're being deliberately destructive or not, if the consequence is the same. If you're doing something for stupid reasons and the consequence is the same as if you did it for evil reasons or mad reasons, then it doesn't really matter why you did it, other than that you shouldn't have done it and the people who saw you do it should have in some way stopped you. And if they didn't, why not? Could they have done it if they were more focused? I suppose, as somebody who has taken a position on problems, and that position is that all problems have a solution. And Judaism says, before the disease, a cure exists, which is a presumption of the mercy of God, who always gives us a solution before he sends us a problem to test our ability to reason, to use our reason to solve a problem which might be obscured. The reason that we could be using could be obscured by character defects, mental illness. And we should watch out for that. So, why was I so annoyed at certain people? I suppose I get impatient at them for not seeing. I get annoyed at them for not seeing the well, not seeing the light. So I don't know if they really do see the light and pretend they don't, or if they really can't see the light. It seems to me very straightforward, but there are lots of things that people can't really talk about these days, or they express great surprise at my holding a particular view that I find um, natural, logical, and I can't understand why people should get hot under the collar about my views if they're rooted in truth and logic. And obviously, if I want to talk about solving problems, then I would have to rely on people, and people should be more cooperative if they're decent people, or if I'm somehow mistaken, then obviously they should correct me. Now, the problem of so many people is a complete lack of principle, and by that I mean their inability to even accept truth, because their characters are so corrupt that they will deny it, and they will deny it because they think they can get away with it. So basically, I'm saying they have a shit attitude to lots of things, and they don't even think that clearly. Now today, or in the last 24 hours, since I know that we are in the early hours of the morning, I would have to say in the last 24 hours, I have been discussing with two separate people ChatGPT. I don't know why people think it's going to change anything much. Yes, scientifically, because of its ability to uh, harness data, store data, collect data, use data, it might seem um, more significantly more intelligent than a human being. But then it isn't a human being, and if we wanted to ask it to solve moral dilemmas, could it do so? It is possible for it to imagine programming ChatGPT the commandments of Allah. Now, it would have to, well, it would have, all the commandments of Allah all listed and numbered, and then you kind of, you could submit to it, a question like, would Allah be pleased if we were to do, X or Y or Z, or which would please him more and which would displease him more? And I suppose it's possible to construct or to write such a program to let ChatGPT function. That's I think quite a good idea. I hope that the people who run ChatGPT can do so, and I was really intending to say that a chatbot cannot possibly be any good at discussing making moral decisions. But then I've changed my mind, or something has occurred to me that might mean that what I thought was impossible is after all possible. So this is something I could be talking to. I could contact them about it too, since they are on Twitter. So let's think of a few situations where you might get a proper answer from GPT. So I suppose if you said, I'm thinking of having sex with somebody I'm not married to, what would happen to me? And I guess ChatGPT would tell you whether what you propose to do would incur punishment or not. So perhaps ChatGPT even has a role to play as regards the development of secular Quranism. But that wasn't really what I intended to talk about. What I intended to talk about was the contemptible masculinity of men who prefer to imagine themselves as in a simulation of where they're just programmed. They have emotions, but they don't have immortal souls. They're just being controlled, and everything is just a dream, and they're all in a pod, just dreaming dreams and not really doing anything. And I suppose the most appalling thing about it was he wanted to be this being in a simulation rather than a real person with free will, capable of changing the outcome of things. So when I consider people like that who really have no fight in them because they don't care, well, it makes me wonder. Well, I already know it's, Western civilization is not going particularly well because there are so few examples of adequate masculinity, because all I see is mental illness, nihilism, moral apathy, and an inability to practice moral reasoning. Because not believing in God, all these people can do is work out what to do that will be best for them, and they can't decide if what they do from one year to the next would be good. And so they change, and so they justify themselves why they've changed, when really they should be concerned that they can't stick to any principle. They can't say what they believe to be the truth. They can't make arguments to defend their version or their opinion, and they really have given up. They'll just change their mind and say, yes, well, yesterday I thought X, and now I've changed my mind. Because it's no longer convenient for me to say these things or think these things or hold these views. And that's how they are. And I don't know if I'm the only woman who finds this repulsive. I have an idea that I'm not, because I remember a conversation I had a few years ago with somebody online, and she was telling me how much she hated British men. And I don't think it's a problem that affects only British men. It affects men of other races, men of other countries in the West. I don't know if I'm the only one who finds the spinelessness repulsive, repellent, revolting, contemptible. And if there are other women like me, then I suppose it neatly explains why Western men are being replaced. If their women despise them, then they would want to get rid of them. They would want to replace them with men that they consider to be more spirited, more principled, more capable of exciting admiration rather than a deep contempt. So I think that's all I'm going to say. I hope I made myself reasonably clear about what I think of men who actually prefer to think of themselves as somebody in a simulation who doesn't even have a real body, whose lives are just his imaginings. That would be, well, the ultimate in humiliation, I would have thought. You don't even lead a real life. You just dream that you are leading a real life. Perhaps it is right that Western civilization is no longer capable of forming the intention of wanting to be saved.